two things can be true at the same time. It can be a cash grab, and it can also be a really good movie. Does the live action How to Train Your Dragon need to exist? Find out in this episode as we break down the live action adaptation of the beloved animated film.
What is up, movie friends? Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. And we have a very interesting episode on the live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon, which originally came out way back in 2010, 15 years ago. If that doesn't make you feel old, I don't know what will, man. That's crazy. But man, I gotta say, I love the original film. I think the first How to Train Your Dragon is as perfect of an animated film as you can make. From the characters to the voice acting to the story to the visuals, it really was a gem and a diamond in the rough, and really one of the best films put out by Universal in the animated genre. And having Dean DeBlois come back to make this film again, the director of the original trilogy, as well as John Powell, added this incredible amount of connective tissue to the original franchise. And does this have to exist? Did Universal have to make this movie? Not really. I mean, yes, they know they're going to make a lot of money. That's great. I'm happy that movie theaters make money. I'm happy that studios can make money so they keep making smaller films. Are we getting a lot of live actions the last 5 years, last 10 years? Absolutely. But you know what? This is one of them that actually worked. It was extremely faithful, about as faithful as an adaptation can possibly be, and added a couple of little tiny new details to it, which I think worked and sometimes didn't work. But overall, it was really fun on the big screen, live action, hearing that score again. And the live action actually lended itself to the action and made that better for me.
Universal invested a ton into this movie before they went even into production. They put $50 million in pre-production just to get sets built, pre-production, pre-viz, building practical sets in locations in Northern Ireland, developing the dragon puppetry systems and flight systems. And so I think Universal knew that they had potential to make a big franchise, to keep making money. That's the way it is these days. These studios are staying afloat from overproducing by maintaining IP films to keep the lights on, basically. And for the most part, live-action adaptations haven't been that great. They've been hit or miss. But I think that Universal nailed it with How to Train Your Dragon, and Dean DeBlois coming back, insisting he's the one to direct this film, his first live-action film he's ever directed, did such a phenomenal job. And the way he approached it, after we got to chat with him a couple months ago at a pretty early screening of some of the scenes, he talked about how he wanted to make it seem like this isn't an adaptation of the original. They wanted to make it feel like the animated versions were adaptations of this, and try to make the live action feel like the original in a lot of ways. And I think they really did such a great job, and you can see the passion in this film from every speck of detail, whether it's the wardrobe of the characters, the dialogue, which is very similar, but also at times they've changed a little bit for live action audiences. The set designs are incredible. The production, the props, the structures they've built, not to mention the in-flight sequences were really astounding. My hair was standing up when Hiccup and Toothless were flying for their first time successfully. And I think you can see the love from the cast, from the crew, from Dean and his team, and how much they put into this film to really do it right, to do a live adaptation right, adapt it so it's a little different, obviously. A lot of it shot-for-shot remake, but about 30% of How to Train Your Dragon is all new sequences and all new ways of shooting the film. So it's not like it was a shot-for-shot like Psycho with Vince Vaughn versus Psycho starring Anthony Perkins, but this is kind of a shot-for-shot, getting the memorable moments like Hiccup and Toothless and Hiccup touching Toothless' face, getting those moments. But also, there's a lot of this movie that's very unique from the original film, and I have a bunch to talk about the details and differences between the live action and animated, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I enjoyed this film. I went in with really no expectations, had a blast.
Sue us.
Sue me
guys.
for having a good time at How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, and I keep seeing a lot of anger online of fans of the original. I mean, you can be angry if you want, but it's just a fucking movie, guys. And this is not a shot-for-shot remake. It has differences in terms of the filmmaking. Yes, the money shots are the same. A couple of the iconic beats, like James said, are the same shots and framing, but the movie is filmed differently and does feel different for the most part. But I think that people are just like I don't know. I don't get it. You don't have to watch this movie. I enjoyed the film. I still prefer the original movie. But that being said, this was a really fun experience, and with that music and the gigantic action sequences, I thought the actors were all very good. And I was so worried about this movie, I thought, because of our experience with so many other live-action adaptations of beloved stories, mainly done by one specific studio. You know who I'm talking about. They often change the story so much. They change the characters that we love, and they give us something different. They put a bow on it and act like it's the same package, but they put new ingredients inside, and it's not what we grew up loving, whatever adaptation it was. But you know what? Universal and Dean, they did it the right way. There were certain characters and certain plot beats and elements that I was concerned they were going to change and update, but they didn't. There were a couple little things here and there, but otherwise it stayed mainly the same story, stayed true to the original. And also, so before we talk about that stuff, I just want to address the elephant in the room. James, you are in an amazing toothless costume, hiccup costume. I love it.
Well, it's more of just like a generic Viking costume. It's the hiccup helmet for sure.
You're not generic.
I mean, I got these.
You're special.
I got these gauntlets that actually were worn by Kit Harington on Game of Thrones, which are really cool. And then I found generic Viking attire besides that, but it's like toothless mixed with Jon Snow. That's what I'm going for.
Do you sleep with those gauntlets next to your bed?
Yeah. No, I cuddle them when I sleep.
Now, before we get into the rest of this episode, of course, is brought to you by our amazing friends at movieposters.com. Go there for all of your poster needs. Use the promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your orders, as well as the affiliate link in the description of this episode to give James and I a little bit of a cut. Movieposters.com, the best place for all of your poster needs. Now, James, how epic was it hearing that John Powell's score?
It was fantastic. I was curious to see what kinds of things he would do differently, but of course he stuck to the guns and really kept the DNA of the film. But I think he was the right choice. I think a lot of studios might have switched to a different composer, like maybe getting Giacchino, who's really hot with doing new adaptations or something like that. But I think John Powell was one of the great components of the DNA of the originals to bring back, just like Dean. And obviously the rest of the cast is all new actors, except for Gerard Butler, who gets to reprise his role, which is so fun as Stoic the Vast. But then we have Mason Thames as Hiccup, who I think is just going to boom into a huge star in Hollywood. I mean, the kid was phenomenal in The Black Phone. He's got The Black Phone 2 coming up, but he's the perfect character and I think the perfect actor to portray Hiccup in this role. He was only 15 years old at the time of filming, which is age accurate to Hiccup. Then Nico Parker comes in as Astrid. We've seen her in the Last of Us TV series as well as a bunch of other films, smaller roles. But I think she was an awesome character. They beefed up her role a little bit, especially when it came to training with the other young dragon fighters. But then once they all got their own dragons by the end of the film, she became very much a leader. So gave her character a lot more to do, which made it sort of more of like a Clark Kent, Lois Lane relationship by the end of the film. How they're always working together at the end of the movie to try to solve.
Yeah.
Versus Peter Parker, Mary Jane, where Peter Parker's always just saving Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And then we have Nick Frost as Gobber the Belch, who, for me, it felt like we got a tiny little tease at what he's going to be like as Hagrid. He obviously has a ridiculously long mustache, but there was one bit of great wisdom and a great nugget that he gave Hiccup in the film where I'm like, that's Hagrid right there. I think that works so well. And then we have several other great young actors coming out as standouts in this movie. And I think everyone in the cast did a really great job. Everyone was phenomenal. I will say, though, a lot of the Vikings don't seem very intimidating. I know it's a kid's movie, but besides Gerard, there's really, like, the established Vikings. They're massive and big in the animated movie, and I think they did a great job with Gerard specifically because his character's so big in the animated. He's got, like, the big beefy coat and the big beefy beard to make him look bigger and animated almost. But for me, the live action didn't translate to, like, having threatening-looking Vikings in general in terms of the community.
Yeah, I think this isn't Robert Eggers' The Northman. Those are the more accurate Vikings if you want them. But Gerard was perfect. It was great to have him back because the character is basically Gerard in the animated film. And he was so sensational to see him on screen because he's actually, I mean, for all of the action movies he's done and the rom-coms he's done, I think he's an extremely talented guy. He's always been a very, very, very good actor. I mean, he's always had the stuff, and he's shown it many times. And you got to see the side of him, of the paternal figure, the father who's struggling to connect with his son and struggling to accept that his son might not be like him. Because this story has so many great emotional threads, whether it be that father and son storyline, the boy and his dog storyline with Hiccup and Toothless, and a boy coming into his own independence and accepting who he is and finding what's special about himself. And Hiccup's a really, really fantastic character. But Gerard Butler's costuming and makeup, the hair and everything, his outfit weighed about 120 pounds, he said, on set. And especially during the finale when he's soaking wet, he said it was the heaviest costume he's ever worn in a film. But you know what? It's worth it because it looks great, and he seemed super passionate about this project. He said it's one of two of his favorite productions he's ever worked on in his entire career. So that says a lot. And it's just an interesting thing. I can't think of I might be wrong, but I can't think of an actor ever reprising their role in live action after doing it animated.
Yeah,
I think it's been done. I think it's been done at live action to animated several times, but not animation to live action.
It's interesting because we talked about this with Tom Felton reprising his role as Draco for the stage after being on film for it, which I'd never really heard of before. And now it's another situation, live action, after doing the animated voice character, because that's really interesting. It's got to be maybe one of the first times that's ever happened for a main character in a movie. Maybe there's been some like supporting cast or minor characters that's happened with. Who knows? Someone can let us know. But I think in addition to Gerard coming back for the DNA, like John Powell, Dean DeBlois, one of the other great strengths of this movie was, I think, the dragons, and they looked really great. Now, the animated version, the dragons are very cartoonish, and that works so well. But then for the live action film, Dean, when we were chatting with him about the movie a couple months ago, he talked about how he wanted to make the dragons, of course, less cartoonish. You have to kind of ground them in reality, which this film does a great job with, making you feel the realism. Like when you're in the arena, handheld on the ground with the dragon fighters, it's really cool, the slayers, as they're training. But the dragons, you got to approach it where you keep the familiarity of the design of the animated, but you got to try to set it in a practical reality. And even though someone like Toothless does have fantastical qualities, cartoonish qualities, the photorealism and how they adapted the cartoonish versions, the animated versions to live action, looked so phenomenal. And the film's visual effects were led by Christian Mansat, Framestore. He's an Oscar and BAFTA-nominated visual effects artist. Most notably, he did Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1. But they really did a great job taking their time and using all of their resources to the best of their abilities to create incredible-looking live-action dragons that borderline reminded me of Game of Thrones, and even better at times, and especially, when Mason's riding the dragon, when he's riding Toothless. Man, they did such a great job, and I like how they kept the overall design of Toothless the same pretty much, some minor tweaks here and there, but overall maintaining what the dragons look like in the animated version, but making them look photorealistic and realistic to our world.
I think that if other filmmakers had helmed this project and Dean and his producing partner weren't involved, I think that they would have gone with the design for Toothless that was maybe more realistic to the world that we know, especially dinosaurs and dragons that we've seen in cinema and on the small screen with shows like Game of Thrones. I think we would have gotten a Toothless that would have looked more like that, maybe rougher, way more reptilian, harsher edges. Whereas Toothless, he's so soft in his features, and that's immediately what makes him very lovable. He's sleek, he's aerodynamic, but he's like the Dodge. What was that like Dodge sports car with the racing stripes? It was like a nice it was like the Corvette, which came out in like 2000.
The Viper,
when it was really soft in it. The Viper. He's like a Dodge Viper.
How could you forget about the Viper, bruh?
It was 20 years ago, bro. Give me a break.
Yeah, they stopped manufacturing them a while ago.
Toothless is like a black Dodge Viper of dragons in his design, and he's got these big stumpy feet. He's very cute. he's not fluffy, but he's very soft in his features, which always worked, I think, for the design, and it really contrasts with the design of the other dragons, which can be very out there. And the dragons were pretty out there, the other dragons.
I'm really not getting this comparison, the Dodge Viper to Toothless. He looks more like a Volkswagen Buggy or a Beetle.
No, he is the fastest dragon. He has to be a Viper, man.
You didn't talk about speed. You talked about how round and soft he was. Then you could.
I'm saying overall, Dodge Viper.
I don't think of
Dodge
round
Viper.
or soft when I think of a Dodge Viper.
If he had racing stripes, he would look exactly like.
He would look like a buggy, a literally a Volkswagen Buggy. What are you talking about? You're high as a kite over there.
But I think other filmmakers would have probably given the dragons less personality, and they would have gone with safer designs. So it was a great thing that Dean and his company were involved to be like, no, Toothless is going to look like Toothless did in the animated film, even though it's live action. That's who Toothless is. So I'm really glad that the design's staying the same. So I think if it was in other hands, it wouldn't have happened.
I think if it was in other hands, even if it looked like now, it's still the visual effects wouldn't have been as good. Probably they would have probably rushed it or pushed it to the point where they didn't look as photorealistic as they did. But this movie's already destroying at the box office. How to Train Your Dragon live action was actually cheaper to make than the animated version, and so the budget was around $150 million. The animated version was about $180 million for production budgets, and it's already grossed a live action adaptation $180 million worldwide. Domestically, it's hit about $75 million at the domestic box office. Massive, massive hit. And yes, it's an expensive film, but compared to other live action adaptations that other studios are making, you know what we're talking about when the budgets are hitting over $300 million and ballooning to making it to the point where a movie has to make $1 billion to be profitable. This movie really only needs to hit probably $450-500 million before it starts making tons of money and printing cash, which it definitely will. It's having a huge, huge week, as well as great word of mouth. And I think overall, everyone's loving it. It's getting really good scores critically, 79% Rotten Tomatoes critic score, as well as 99% audience score. IMDb, it's an 8.1 right now. Letterboxd, it's pretty high as well. I think it's pretty close to 4. So I think that the
3.9.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good for Letterboxd. Audiences are loving it. There are a vocal minority of people that are against it because of their. I think it just comes from passion at the end of the day. You know, they're so passionate about the originals. They wonder, do we really need this to need a live action adaptation? And the way I approached it and how I felt after seeing the live action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon, I felt that the animated version definitely does things better. You know, I think the fantastical elements are stronger in the animated version, as well as things like Gerard Butler punching dragons in the face works better in the animated movie versus live action, because the live action is like, come on, bro. I know you're like the strongest Viking, but you're just throwing haymakers at dragons.
He rips the chain.
Yeah, so stuff like that doesn't work as well live action. But as I was watching this movie, I felt connected to a lot of the great fantasy movies we were getting when we were kids, whether they're animated or live action. You know, I think a movie like The Neverending Story, this felt like I was watching a movie like that from our youth, which was all practical. You know, a kid riding a fake dragon, basically covered in hair, but riding a fake dragon, Falcor. It felt like, to me, sort of in that world, in that space, and I felt nostalgic about it as I was watching the live action versus the animated version, because I could practically see that this was actually filmed on locations and on sets. And yes, there's plenty of CGI, plenty of visual effects, but they did a great job. And overall, once you blend in the real photography of these beautiful, gorgeous locations on the coasts of Ireland, the cliffsides, as well as the massive sets, whether it's the castles, the huts, the interiors, the dragon slaying arena, everything looked so good and tangible and real. And I had a different experience watching it versus the animated version in a very positive way.
There are things that I agree work way better animated. Like you said, some of the more fantastical elements do work better. Overall, I think even the design of the dragons work better animated, because they can be really fun and vibrant and really crazy. And also the humor and charm is better in the animated film, but that's because voice acting actors are allowed to be more expressive than they normally would. Live action acting is much more subtle. Jay Baruchel was the perfect perfect Hiccup. You can't really cast better than Baruchel for Hiccup, but Mason Thames did a really good job following that up. But again, there's things like Baruchel's comedy, the way he was able to really express himself as well as the other actors, and the animation makes characters way more expressive. So the comedy's funnier, and the charm works better on the animated. But on the flip side, I think you get a little bit more nuance when you can see real people's eyes watering, and you can watch Gerard Butler's voice crack and see the expression in his eyes, and as he's looking down at his son, regretting how he's behaving. There's things like that you can't get in animation, that it does work better. And on top of that, I really do think that the action worked better for live action because since it's live action, when it's animated, the action's great in the animated. It's outstanding. I love the third act of How to Train Your Dragon. It's so fun, and the flying sequence is really, really great. But it's animated. There's the sense of danger isn't quite as strong as, for me, watching live action. You see real people in danger. You see real people being faced with a giant monster or with huge walls of flames. You're like, oh my God, there really is, I think, an increased sense of danger for the audience that works better. So I think it makes the action punchier. And on top of that, they really nailed it with the visual effects. It's not perfect, but they did a very, very good job. I loved it. And so I think that the live action worked better for the action sequences. And I would say most definitely for the I thought that the test flight scene was so great, and gigantic screen, John Powell's score, the visual effects. It's mostly the similar story arc in that scene, but a little bit different, and I think they stretched it out a little bit better. But man, it's great. It just gives you goosebumps. Once Hiccup, he gives up on the map and he just trusts his instincts on how to fly with the new tail with Toothless, and then the hero theme kicks in, and you're like, oh my God, I wish I could fly right now. So I think that there are aspects that improved upon the animated film because it was live action. But overall, still, I think that the animated film is superior. But this was a really respectable reboot.
There are two things can be true at the same time. It can be a cash grab, and it can also be a really good movie with a lot of great production and a lot of great people working on it that work their butts off to make such a great film. And I think both those things are true. Obviously, cash grabs are the Hollywood 101 right now with IPs, remakes, reboots, legacy sequels, legacy sequel, reboot, prequel, midquels. Everything is getting milked. But like Anthony and I have always said, like the last year, as we've started to, there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to accept it. As long as the movies are good and made with passion, it's fine with me. And I think that's the situation here. It's a cash grab, of course. It's an IP. It's established. But they could do some new things. And there are a lot of changes, which I'd like to get into. I made a big list of things that are different between the original animated version and the live action How to Train Your Dragon. First of all, the Vikings of Berk in the original are relatively homogenous, with a little explanation of their cultural diversity. But in the live action, it's basically a multicultural hub, and Gerard Butler's Stoic gives a speech talking about how they're Vikings from all over the world. They're all in this community, and they're the best dragon slayers and best Vikings in the world, and they've come here to stop and kill these dragons. So I like how they've added more in terms of scope of people from all over around the world. The timelines and changes for specific scenes are a little different here and there. Some conversations between Hiccup and Astrid, like before he goes to slay. It's daytime in one movie, it's nighttime in another one. Not that big of a deal. We're talking about some scenes are omitted. The scene with the smaller dragons was omitted from the animated version. You have to cut some stuff, I think, for runtime because you're doing things differently in the live-action adaptation version. The nest battle, that one is a little more horror-driven in the animated version, and a lot of it's done and implied off-screen. And then, actually, the live-action is more horror. The live-action's more hardcore, more horror. Animated, some stuff's implied off-screen, but then we get a little more grounded, more tension, more of a visual spectacle for this dragon nest battle. Again, we talked about Astrid, how she's more beefed up for her role. Overall, in the animated version, she's a strong, resilient character, but her leadership's really secondary to Hiccup's in the final battle. But she proves herself over and over again as the best dragon slayer. And then by the finale, she becomes a leader of the group once she gets her dragon, emphasizes her strength as a character and that dynamic with Hiccup, making their relationship, I think, stronger. As well as something small, the dandelion sequence. So in the animated version, the dragons treat the dandelions like catnip, and they, roll around. They go very whimsical with it. Whereas the live action, they're allergic to the dandelions and they sneeze from the dandelions. It's more of a grounded reaction. It's kind of more realistic, and I think adds a different kind of charm, less whimsical in a way. I don't know how you felt about that difference.
I think it works better because it reminds me of my cat who sneezes all the time.
Overall, the tone, the animated, very colorful, very vibrant, stylized, great palettes, perfect for animated movies, especially even during those intense moments. But the live action, it felt like you're watching an episode of Game of Thrones. More desaturated color, very grounded, very gritty. I think it looked really great. At times, it felt like a war movie. You're in the arena slaying dragons, or it's the dragon attack in the opening of the film. It's very visceral, very gritty, and I really like that quality to the live-action adaptation. I'm glad they didn't go the same color route and vibrant route of the animated style.
They also had a little extra scenes to showcase Hiccup's social isolation from the other kids. For example, like the cafeteria scene where the other kids are sitting together and he's sitting by himself, showcasing that he doesn't fit in because he doesn't fit in with the standards of this culture at all. And then also they beefed up. What's his name? The other kid's role. He's got another scene. I can't remember his name. So we get to see his character fleshed out a little bit more. And also it changes the siblings, the twins, those actors are way too old. Those are not 15-year-olds.
So are you talking about fish legs for the character who has his own scene, or Snotlout?
Yeah.
So fish legs.
Snotlout. Yeah.
So Snotlout, the jerk one.
Yeah. But fish legs, that actor looks just like him. So I get why they cast him. Also, the two of them had really good chemistry together. They're way too old for the roles, but I think they really work. And it also shows like maybe they've been failing at this for years. Like they're like the 20-year-old in high school in a way.
Well, so no, the twins are Rough Nut and Tough Nut, right?
Rough Nut, yes, Rough Nut.
And so they talk about they make that line in the movie where they've been held back from dragon slaying. Yeah. So.
Yeah, in terms of actors looking like the characters, I think he looks more than anyone else in the movie as his animated counterpart.
That's actually a good point.
If you think about it.
Yeah, I think that's the way. Also, visually, you're shooting with IMAX cameras, baby. I think there's something special about that when you build sets and you got IMAX cameras and you're shooting these incredible sequences. And I gotta say, the flying sequence, once Hiccup, after he builds the saddle and they have a couple of bad test runs and he figures that out, and then they have their first big run, and obviously it almost goes horribly wrong when he floats in the air and almost falls off toothless. But man, when they're flying and they get their rhythm going and he gets the movements down, my hair is standing up. It was incredible. The music was incredible with John Powell coming in, but there's just something that hits differently with live action versus animated. It's just, for me personally, not everyone, for me it hits different.
And speaking of John Powell for a bit, he really is one of the underrated composers working today. We've been huge fans of his for a long time, starting with the Jason Bourne films that he scored, and then I've just loved his work since then. But the How to Train Your Dragon themes are some of the best work he's ever done, and that hero theme is I think one of the best hero themes written in the last 20 years. It's a really simple, perfect, and effective melody that once it gets going, it just for me, it gives me goosebumps when I listen to it. It pumps me up if I'm at the gym, makes me feel very inspired. And the question is, like, how can he change it up? What can he do differently with the music? Because we're not talking about this being another sequel where you have new characters and you have new conflicts, so you're coming up with new themes and new melodies for that, and you're adding on to what you already do, which is usually how it's done. We're talking about you're composing the same story again. How do you make it feel different? And he kept to his melodies and many of the same structures, but he also added some really cool new elements. There's a lot more choir work in this film that works really well. We get a lot of choir in this, especially in the test flight sequence when he's falling, and many other parts of the film, and in the third act before the big fight sequence when Toothless is at the bottom of the ocean. There's so many great moments of that, and also he played around with tempo changes with the main theme and his two main melodies, and you can actually hear the tempo change, as well as for me, it felt like a few new instruments and more layers. And he did, I think, make it different enough, but still stick to what fans love when they hear that music, when they watch these scenes, because many of the scenes are the same. Obviously, the music should be the same, but I feel like he made it fresh and exciting, and it seemed like he had a lot of fun with this. It seemed like he probably had a bunch of ideas. Like, imagine like going back to something you wrote 15 years ago and being like, or like you were thinking about, you're like, oh, I wish I did that, or maybe I could have done this differently, or maybe like, oh, I wish I could have added that, but you can't now. So he got this opportunity to probably be like, you know what, I had this idea, but I came up with it a year after we made this movie. Now I can throw it in there. So I think John Powell's music was exceptional and so fun and refreshing.
Same thing with Dean. This movie's 27 minutes longer than the animated, so they did so much extra stuff, whether it's extending scenes, cutting original scenes, and then adding new scenes. So there's a lot different from the live action versus animated like we've been talking about, as well as there's something funny about fish and the smell of fish that happened on set with this film, which we'll get into after our intermission. Now, before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast, you all know the deal. Become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast, where you get access to weekly bonus episodes, access to our Discord, as well as the ad-free version of every single episode. Go to patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast to find out which tier is best for you, as well as all the awesome perks that come with each one. Also, another great way to support the show, leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple. These ratings help us get seen by new people, new listeners. They make people give us a chance when they see the rep we've got with a couple thousand ratings on each platform. I love to read out written reviews on Apple Podcasts to immortalize someone on the show forever. I'll get to one of those in just a minute. Another great way to support the show, subscribing on YouTube, following us on Instagram, TikTok. Content is key for us. People who engage with our stuff, whether it's sharing us in your stories, sending our videos to your friends via DMs, commenting, liking, all of that engagement is integral to us getting cool opportunities that we get, whether it's going to London for Ballerina, interviewing people for Mickey 17. We don't get these jobs, we don't get these offers without your engagement. So comment, like, share, do all the things. Word of mouth is the best way for a podcast to grow, so share our content, as well as share your favorite episodes of our show with your friends or family members who need a new podcast to watch or listen to.
This episode, of course, like always, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com, the number one place to get your posters online today. Be sure to use our promo code Raiders10 to always get 10% off your order, as well as the affiliate link in the description of this episode and our Instagram bio. That link gives James and I a little cut of the action. Look at that epic, beautiful backlit poster behind James for How to Train Your Dragon. That thing looks fire. Looks great. They need to start making more posters like that. No floating heads for How to Train Your Dragon. They did a good job. They have a huge assortment of contemporary, modern blockbuster movie posters from your favorite indie films, your favorite foreign films, your favorite classic movies, everything you can think of under the sun, they have you covered. As well as for all the collectors out there, a ton of amazing lobby cards, original movie stills, original movie posters that they actually hung up in theaters back in the day that you can get. These are collector's items, original prints. A great fan of ours, Steven, just posted that he got a whole set of Lawrence of Arabia lobby cards, an amazing collector's item. For all of your poster needs, always go to movieposters.com. High quality, really cheap prices, made even cheaper thanks to our promo code Raiders10 which will always get you 10% off your order. And don't forget to use that affiliate link.
All right, let's get into our intermission. Are you ready, Anthony?
Ready.
Beginning with the movie quote competition. Here we go. Anyone can cook, but only the fearless can be great.
The menu?
No.
Chef?
Nope.
I don't know.
Ratatouille.
Man. Here's my quote. Envy the country that has heroes, huh? I say pity the country that needs them.
That sounds super familiar, but I can't think of it.
That's McConaughey in Reign of Fire.
Oh, nice. Nice pick. Oh, he's a monster in that movie. I love him in that film.
Fuck, what a beast.
Anthony, guess this movie release year, The Never-Ending Story.
We did not. We grew up watching this, but we did not see it when it came out because it came out before we were born, I believe.
That's correct.
It was 1987.
84.
84. Wow. Oh my God, that's an old movie. James, what year did 300 come out? I want to make you feel old.
Was it 2009 or 2007? 2009.
2006. It's older than you thought.
Oh my God! Fuck.
It's almost 20 years old.
Holy shit, man. Yeah, Gerard was wicked young in that movie. Yeah.
Wicked young and wicked ripped. You got a quiz for me?
Yeah.
Or you're just gonna sit there.
Oh yeah. I was like waiting for you.
Silence.
Movie pop quiz time. What composer scored 2010's "Let Me In," the American remake of "Let the Right One In"?
I don't think it was Giacchino. I'm gonna say Giacchino. I don't know.
It was Giacchino.
Oh, sweet. Yes. I shouldn't have doubted myself.
Michael Giacchino.
All right. Gerard Butler played a supporting role in 2 gigantic globe-trotting adventure films in the year of 2003. Can you name the 2 movies?
What? Tomb Raider 2, Cradle of Life.
Correct.
Yes. Cradle of Life. And then they're both the same year, you said?
Same year. He basically has the same role pretty much in both movies. He's like the supporting friend. Although he turns in Cradle of Life, but he's a friend in the other movie. And this is another huge movie.
I can't remember the other one, but yeah, I got one.
Timeline.
Oh, okay.
Paul Walker was the lead.
Forgot about that movie.
Yeah.
Good question. Good question.
Thanks, man. I put a lot of work into it.
All right. Well, I hope you put a lot of.
It took me 10 seconds.
I hope you put a lot of work into our unsubscribes because who we got? Let's hear some.
I've been screenshotting them all week. Okay, first up. August the Mustang. On our Scream 6 episode. Could this be counted as clickbait because the title says Scream 6? If so, I will unsubscribe. I think it was a Scream 5 episode.
Whoops.
I don't think we did Scream 6.
But did we do Scream 5?
Landon. Yeah, we did. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I don't even remember.
All right, Landon on our movie news episode last week. No Anthony? Unsubscribed. No mention of the incredible trailer for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Double unsubscribed.
Sorry. Are you going to be at movie news this weekend? Or am I going?
Yeah.
Or am I going solo?
No, I'll be there if it's just a little later, not much later.
Yeah, we'll figure out. We'll talk about it off cam.
Yeah.
But I'm sure people missed you.
All right, Yeah. I miss you guys. Next up, Bradley Paris. Pride Rock? Nah, Rock Tower. Unsubscribed.
Rock Tower.
Funny, but still unsubscribed. I couldn't think of the name of Pride Rock, so I just called it Pride Tower. I mean, Rock Tower.
Yeah, that's funny.
Let's go, sick. We're going to meet up at the Rock Tower, bruh. The Tiny Raccoon commented on our Predator episode. Boys, May 2023 Predator episode. Jesse Ventura was the governor of Minnesota, not Nevada. Unsubscribe.
Whoops. Whoops.
I feel like generally we were regionally close.
Yeah, I mean, we knew he was a governor.
All right, Burnt Bankai about Dawn of the Dead. It's not their daughter in Dawn of the Dead. It's their neighbor's daughter. So uncivilized. Unsubscribed. Loving Life. 28 weeks later. Unsubscribed. Ocean Roars. Ballerina was excellent. If you disagree, then unsubscribe.
Fun movie. The hate we're getting because we enjoyed
movie.
it. It's insane.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's like crazy. Isn't it bonkers that like people are angry when someone likes a movie?
It's pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Unreal, man. What a world we live in.
But it didn't have a great box office performance. But we'll see if it can, make a profit. It was a pretty expensive movie.
I don't think it's possible.
Yeah,
it's not
25
possible
million
for it to earn
opening.
profit. It needed it. Yeah,
It needs like 250.
it needed at least 40. Yeah, it needs a ton of money. All right, Tiny Raccoon again. Not sure what you did to poor Pyle McLachlan's name. Unsubscribe.
You called him McLaughlin, right?
I said McLaughlin. I call him McLaughlin first. I said it wrong, I think, 3 times. It wouldn't be Raiders of the Lost podcast without mispronouncing people's names.
Yeah, or words.
Little Richards. This is my first episode I've ever listened from you guys, and I can't believe you didn't include the opening scene from Revenge of the Sith. Unsubscribed.
Oh,
you know
man.
what? That opening scene, I thought of that night in bed, and I was like, oh, man, we totally missed that
Sorry, guys.
one.
Well, I
Muckman
appreciate
movies aren't
that
best
it's
opening
their
scene.
first episode and they're already getting on the unsubscribe train.
Yeah, that's great. That means I listened to a lot of it. All right, Muckman. If Dawn of the Dead remake and 28 Weeks Later aren't on the list of best opening scenes, typing this before you're seeing your chosen films, I'll unsubscribe.
Don't worry, we got him.
Ziggy, There Will Be Blood is the best film of the century. The Ghost of Oppenheimer just unsubscribed
It just came
from your podcast.
It just came out. Let's sit on it.
Yeah, let's sit on it. We got to sit on it. Seriously, you guys should do a best films of the century list.
Oh, that would be a fun episode. Oh, the controversies.
Ziggy also, this is a inside joke too from the podcast. You guys talked about the opening to Goodfellas without singing the opening to Rags to Riches. Unsubscribed. Bum, 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 bum. There we go. That was for you, Ziggy. All right, next up, Fend. Awesome subject choice, guys. By the way, your Blade discussion is wrong. Oh my God, I'm so happy this comment happened. You said the guy got a blowjob, and it wasn't true. I told you no. You wouldn't
It
believe
is true.
me. You said you looked it up. No.
There's someone
the guy
getting-
getting the head at the... No. Hold on, listen. The guy getting head in the beginning of Blade is Donald Logue's character, a different character.
Whatever.
Unfortunately, I feel I must unsubscribe.
Sorry,
Thank
I
you,
mixed up
Fiend.
so it wasn't
Thank
the
you.
human, it was another vampire then, right? Yeah.
Yes, it wasn't the human.
Well, I was right
It
about
just another, it was a guy
I
in
was
the
right about
background.
someone getting fellatio in the opening scene at least. Give me that.
Fellatio. Yeah, I'll give you that. But you were arguing me. I was like, it wasn't that guy.
No, but
No way that
overall
guy- I was like,
the
there-
argument
There's no way that
was-
guy got a blowjob. But
the argument was that someone was getting fellatio in the opening scene. That was the argument.
Stop saying fellatio.
I don't want to get like YouTube revoked. It's probably a safer algorithm. It's a safer algorithm word. The algorithm, man.
Keep safe.
Kids are watching this
Keep saying
episode. It's How to Train
fellatio.
Your Dragon, Anthony.
It's not a swear.
I know it's not, but algorithm stuff, man. Algorithm. I'm always thinking about them.
All right. Well, I'm just really glad that I knew that guy didn't get fellatio. Jake.
Well, I knew someone did, but no, you were shocked to hear that someone did anyways. That was the whole point.
Well, I was shocked about that. I didn't remember anyone getting fellatiated at all. But see how funny it is. But I also was definitely like, there's no way that guy got fellatiated. No way
wrong
that
guy. I don't think you can use it as a verb. It's not. It's a noun, Anthony. It's not a verb.
It's better as a verb. It's better. Hey, you wanted to start using this word. I'm using it, man.
I used it correctly.
All right, enough fellatio talk.
Fucking hell.
Oh man, it's funny.
All right, who else you got?
Greatest opening scenes episode. Luke Boyd. What the Sigma? Anthony not know OP? Unsubscribe. Bro needs to do his research.
Oh, Anthony's such an old head, guys. Such an old head.
Old head. I'm an old head.
Surprised you knew that one.
Brad Lasky. Great episode of... I know some stuff. Unfortunately, I must unsubscribe because Baby Driver's opening sequence was one of the most transcendent theater experiences I've had in recent years. Plus, I need a little Edgar Wright love for this episode. Thanks. That's true.
Good point. That's a good opening scene. That's really good.
Yeah. And then finally, Dylan. The little girl in Dawn of the Dead is not Anna's daughter. She's the neighbor's daughter, again. As seen playing on roller skates one scene prior. Fake Snyder fans unsubscribed.
Bro, honestly, I hadn't seen that movie in 15 years. I'm just trying to recount it from memory. Anyways, the Baby Driver one, you're right. That was shot in Portland too, I believe. Portland, Oregon.
Atlanta. You're way off.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's not Portland, it's Atlanta.
Was it?
Yeah.
Baby Driver.
There's no way that movie's in Portland.
No, I'm just talking about that opening sequence. Let me check. I want to fact check you on that.
I'm happy to be fact check on this. Please fact check.
Let's look this up. I'm on IMDb.
I can't wait to explain this to a fucking Suffolk County jury. It's gonna be fucking
Just
fun.
fucking kill me. Hold on, let me find the locations.
Jesus, how long does it take to Google this? Just search Baby Driver Atlanta. That's it. Just search Baby Driver Atlanta. It's used iconic landmarks in Atlanta in that opening.
You're right.
Sequence.
You're wrong, Anthony. It's not Portland. It's actually Atlanta.
I'm gonna kill you.
I'm glad we fact checked you on that.
I'm so sorry that I wasn't listening to you.
Hey, don't worry about it, pal. It's all good. It's all good. That's why we're here we fact check each other, you know. Do you want to hear a great
unlike with Blade?
Do you want to hear a great 5-star written review?
You had no interest in fact checking Blade.
I was right about Blade. 50% right.
You're mostly wrong. Mostly wrong.
Hey, someone got fellatioed, bro. That's all that mattered. Jordan Sith left a great 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. Jordan wrote, subject line, film boys to movie daddies, 5 stars. This is the best movie podcast there is. I found these guys way back on their first Interstellar episode while trying to find someone talking about the film. Been hooked ever since. Full patron and supporter of the show. Wow, thanks, Jordan. You guys do it best. From film boys to movie daddies, you both have grown and come so far with the podcast. You have inspired me to start my own podcast and currently working on my first film. That sounds amazing. Woo! Congratulations. Don't be sinners and give these boys 5 stars only. Seriously, guys, congrats on all your success. Don't forget us when you become famous film boys. P.S. For newcomers, get your hands in the air. Put the money in the bag. Oh, man, Jordan. Put the money in the bag.
Don't fuck this up.
Fuck! I love how the quote's still wrong, but we're still going with it. Fucking. One of my dreams is for Ryan Gosling to know about this and to know the lore behind the whole thing. To know the lore that we got the quote wrong for 4 years and that we still don't care. We still do it. And there's an army of fans that still quote it wrong on purpose. The money in the bag! Chance in the air!
Jesus Christ! Jesus Christ! Thanks, Jordan. That was great.
Great review.
Appreciate you, bro.
Anthony, what's your
movie daddies are happy.
Yeah? What's your streaming recommendation?
Parthenope, the new Paolo Sorrentino film, is on Max. Check it out.
How is it?
Apparently, it's great.
Did you see it? Oh, you haven't seen it.
No, I was traveling.
You are such a hypocrite. This fucking guy. I'm still never. Anthony a month ago gave me so much shit for recommending
like 5 months
recommending
ago.
a movie that I'd never seen before, and here he is again recommending a movie he's never seen before. I wonder if he. Oh man, I bet you someone gets fellatioed in that movie.
That was like 6 months ago. That was like 8 years ago, man.
People forget.
But no, I haven't seen it. But it's Paolo Sorrentino, and it's an international film, so you should check it out if you want to.
So naturally, like I'm totally gonna see it. You know, being Anthony and all.
I'll see it when I can. I'll see it when I can. I haven't been in America for I've been in America for 5 weeks.
Oh, they don't got the internet in Europe.
I don't have Max.
They don't got the internet.
I'll rent it when I get back.
So why can't you rent it now?
I haven't watched a movie in 10 days.
Except for
I'm in Italy, bro.
Except for How to Train Your Dragon.
Except for How to Train Your Dragon.
In Italian.
My Letterboxd recap is one movie.
All right, my streaming recommendation is Spaceballs on Max because the second film just got greenlit. Rick Moranis is coming out of retirement. Louis Pullman is also in the cast, joining his father, Bill Pullman. So I think this is really exciting. Catch up on the original on Max, though.
That's the last thing I ever expected to happen.
It's pretty cool. Rick Moranis coming out of retirement. Hell yeah. What an icon from our youth, really. Let's get back into How to Train Your Dragon. And I just want to talk about my favorite character relationship and dynamic in the film, which has got to be Hiccup and Toothless. And I think they handled it so well. I love the way that Hiccup builds his relationship with Toothless. You know, Hiccup wants to prove that he can be a dragon slayer as well. He wants to prove that he's one of them, one of the Vikings. But he's different. He's odd.
One of us.
He doesn't have a killer instinct. He's more interested in doing engineering and mechanical designs and drawing and sketching. But he wants to prove himself because he's trying to win the approval of his father above all else. Like a lot of sons and a lot of daughters do. They're trying to win the approval of their parents. He wants to live up to the name of his father being the best dragon slayer there is and the chief of the village. But he doesn't have that potential. And his journey through meeting Toothless is so connected to that because with his designs of his little machine, he shoots Toothless down. This never-before-seen dragon that's just really a myth to the Vikings builds his connection with him by saving Toothless, freeing him from the trap, building that relationship, bringing him fish, until eventually learning how to riding. And obviously the village is about killing the dragons, which is this never-ending circle of violence, which is, I think, a great strong point to make because that's a lot of violence in the world today. In the past is just a never-ending circle of they did this, so will you do this, so they do that. Boys in the Hood, it's exactly the same thing, a circle of violence that never ends. But someone has to stand up and try to put an end to it, and that's what Hiccup does.
I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting a Boys in the Hood connection.
Same thing.
I'm sorry, I was so taken aback by it.
You like that? It's a film. That's Film Boy right there. You didn't see that coming.
No.
That's the main theme of the movie.
Yeah. And they did add something. Serious note. There was a bit of dialogue that was new where Hiccups said, and it was a slight change, but they never addressed it again. Where he basically said like, he implied that the land used to belong to the dragons, and then now the humans took it from them, which isn't in the original. And I was like when I saw it, I was like, is that line in the original? And so it's not in it because it adds the idea that the dragons are like out for vengeance, when in reality they're not out for vengeance. They're raiding the village because of the big queen. They're in fear of their own lives, so they're bringing her food. So that's why they're raiding the human villages. So it implied this. It kind of like a little muddled up, but then they never addressed it again. Maybe that was like a plot that they cut out.
No, I think,
or maybe there's some more dialogue. Maybe there's some more dialogue.
Can I interpret that?
Yeah.
For me, that's more of Hollywood being very aware in their stories and films now with bringing up colonization and the taking of land of other peoples. So I think that's what it was, is just modern Hollywood motif that is common these days, which is, very important to shed light on. And so I think that's what they were doing with that, showing human effect of taking over other people's lands, whether it's an indigenous culture or animals, destroying a forest where animals live. They lose their food supply. They can't survive. So they're going after the sheep that the Vikings have for themselves to try to maintain their supply of food.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I get that. I get that. The flip side, the problem that question poses is that now that they've defeated the queen, won't some of the dragons still want the land back? Does that add a new conflict into the next film? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I think they just want to hang out and be homies, honestly. It seems like.
There's like you were talking about the production design, and I thought the costumes and the sets were spectacular, and they look so good. And it's fun to see things put on the big screen in reality that made an impact on you in an animated version. It's interesting to see because it's done so faithfully. And I mean, there's so many great things, from the helmets to the costumes to the inviting arena. So many great elements. Even Toothless's, Hiccup's home is great. But honestly, I gotta say, like, my favorite prop in the movie, like my favorite tangible thing in the movies, it might have been the dragon book, because it's a great part of the movie in the animated film when Hiccup's going through the dragon book and with the candlelight. And then, like, when Mason Thames' Hiccups is doing it, and he opens the dragon book, and you're like, oh my God, it's like the real dragon book. For me, I like that stuff a lot. And so for a lot of the props and the costumes work so well to see tangible. And it's a different format. It's a different kind of medium of filmmaking. And I'm not saying it's better, but I really enjoyed little moments like that, just seeing like that real book with real candlelight on it.
Well, I think Dean DeBlois, he just knew from the get-go, we have to do this differently than other live-action adaptations. He insisted on filming on real locations in Ireland, constructing an entire Viking village, complete with real-world textures, tastes, and smells. They even pumped in the scent of raw fish to immerse actors like Mason Thames and Nico Parker in the village to make it smell like a true Viking village. So doing things like that to get your actors in the headspace of, this is a real Viking village and we're going to make it feel like one.
That's so funny. I mean, it was like Disneyland then.
Yeah,
with the fragrances.
Oh man, Disneyland just walking up gets you so hungry.
And I really like the landscapes and the locations they chose to film. It's kind of crazy. They found spots that like look so similar, especially when Astrid is talking to Hiccup before they ride off together. That like hillside along the water, it was like, it just felt like the hillside on the water in the original film. So they found like these locations that like translated perfectly into the real world. And I thought it was just like, it's like the DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time. You know, you're pointing out all these little things that you see. You're like, oh my God, that's that bit. And it's like it's come to life, and it's really fun.
And I think this franchise is just going to get bigger and bigger. You know, obviously it's going to be a very successful film already. It is, but they're going to be integrating How to Train Your Dragon in theme parks, and Universal Epic Universe in Orlando has already got and built their own parks and versions of the movie there for rides, and they have Hiccup there. There's two versions of Hiccup. There's one where he's young doing the kid does a Jay Baruchel impression. And then there's another Hiccup who's like 35 years old. It's pretty funny. People come after them on the internet. But I think this is, they're obviously going to make a second and make a third. Hands down, they're absolutely going to do it. And I'm for it. I like this live action. You good over there? Or is it all the laughing fucked your throat up?
It's all the laughing. Sorry. It was all the
all
laughing.
I hear is the
Don't worry, the mic's not picking it up.
You're not getting fellatiated, are you?
Oh, yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Dean DeBlois comes back and does the rest of the movies. He's actually the first director to ever write the screenplay and direct a live-action adaptation of an animated movie that he also wrote the screenplay for and directed originally. It's the first time this ever happened, which I think is really fascinating. But, stick to your guns. This guy, he has so much passion for the project. We got to talk to him for like 5 minutes. He's just so happy and grateful. He's like this big, jolly guy. He's got this big Viking beard. It seems like this is what he's been doing. He's working on and thinking of his whole life for decades, this story, this movie, and now to do live-action adaptations with. I think he did such a great job filmmaking-wise. The style of the filmmaking felt very grounded, bringing that camera at low angles on the ground, handheld, with our characters as they're fighting Vikings or attempting to fight Vikings. I thought it was a lot of fun, but the practical filmmaking overall just sold it for me. I think he did such a great job directing.
And the issues that people having of this movie even existing, it actually is such a ironic thing when you're talking about Universal Pictures, because I think a lot of people aren't aware of the history of cinema. Universal Pictures was built off of sequels and reboots and remakes from their MonsterVerse. You just mentioned the MonsterVerse, and it reminded me. I mean, we're getting 2 Frankenstein movies like this later this year, and the Maggie Gyllenhaal one got pushed back to next year, but originally was slated. We just got another Wolfman. We just got another Invisible Man. I mean, we got 2 Dracula movies last year. Universal built its studio off of the monsters. It was remakes and reboots, sequels after sequels. It was like Abbott and Costello meet the Wolfman. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. It was Frankenstein and the Wolfman. It was like they mashed them together. So I'm not a fan of live action movies all the time, but it's when they change the story and they try to make. It's like the filmmakers and writers are like, I'm gonna do my version and it's gonna be better, but it's not. That's what really pisses me off, and that's not what happened with this film. Reboots and remakes are not new. Scorsese made 2 remakes. I mean, I think that people going to the movies is a good thing. We're well past COVID. This summer box office looks like it's going to be very strong. Last year was pretty good, but still, it's still on a tightrope. The film industry and the theatrical distribution industry is still. It's not in a secure place. It's just staying afloat. I think that getting people excited to go to the cinema at the end of the day is the most important thing to the industry. And you know what? We talked about it all throughout this past year. There were over a dozen big original films that nobody saw. The only major original film people saw was Sinners. The other ones they didn't even see. And then they're going to complain that that Hollywood doesn't make fresh ideas. We've talked about every month on this show new releases that make no money. Nobody saw Black Bag. I don't know anyone who saw Black Bag. It's already like 1,000th watched on Letterboxd. Like nobody watches it, and so I get why people don't want remakes, but they're not new at all. They were doing them all throughout the 30s and 40s. Universal went crazy on the monsters. That's how they built the company, and you know what? Studios do put out a pretty decent number of original films, and for the most part, people don't go see them. I know everyone listening to this show gives original films a shot. James and I love watching original films, and it's sad to see them fail at the box office over and over again. And you know what? This is like a necessary thing. Universal has to make a lot of money every year, And you know what? They got to make a How to Train Your Dragon reboot, live action. To do it, whatever. Do it. It's just that's what the industry is now.
You tell them, Anthony. Yeah, man.
You should make that a TikTok clip.
You'll get a lot of hate, so maybe I should. No, I agree, But like I said, as long as it's done well, it's fine with me. And you're right. Legacy sequels, reboots, they're not new. They've been around forever. But I think this is rare because we have the same filmmaker who probably brought back a lot of his same team. Obviously doing things different because they're actually on the ground in real life. But you're bringing the creative vision from the original to the new version. What more could you ask for a live action version? And, I personally, I think I enjoyed the live action more than the animated. I might be in the tiny minority there, but I really enjoyed this film. I had a good time. I love the practical locations. I think the cast was superb. It's very funny. Standout actors, Mason Thames, Astrid, played by Nico Parker. Gerard was great. Nick Frost really brought the movie, made the soul of the film palpable. The heartbeat was there. I felt the dilemma, the father trying to please the son, as well as the son trying to please the father, both doing it the wrong way until the end of the film. They don't really understand each other till the finale, as well as a coming-of-age story that everyone can connect to, trying to understand who you are, try not to be who you think you should be compared to those around you, but just following the beat of your own drum and just really living up to who you really are on the inside, as well as great moral dilemmas of killing, whether or not you should kill an animal because of the endless cycle of violence that it's been a part of in part of your community. A lot of really...
like in Boys in the Hood.
Like in Boys in the Hood. The circle of violence that never ends. Come on, man. Singleton, baby. Singleton. Tell me that wasn't the best film reference ever.
That was the sickest reference you made all year, I gotta say.
So I think it hit all the themes. It resonated with me. I got teary-eyed. I got emotional, even though I knew the beats. I knew the movie. We did a Patreon episode on the original. I mean, I still felt the feels when I was watching this movie, even though it was very similar. But, I think you do a different version of it, and it works. It worked for me. Obviously, it didn't work for everybody. There are pros and cons, like we've been talking about in the episode, of what things work better animated versus live action. But I think at the end of the day, I think this movie deserves to exist. It should exist. I had a really good time. And as someone who really resonates with live action, I think they did an awesome job.
Are you wearing Crocs?
Possibly.
Let's see them.
I'd rather not.
Show us.
I'd rather not. They're off camera for a reason, Anthony.
Wow, James says, wow, I got to see these.
Are they on? Can you see them on the WhatsApp call?
Yeah.
They're off.
I was listening to you. I swear I was listening intently, and then I saw Crocs. I was like, is James wearing Crocs?
I didn't want anyone to know. It's literally like Ron Burgundy.
Vikings don't wear. You're a Viking. You're a Viking outfit. You're wearing Crocs. Oh,
they're made with real crocodile skin, though. So they're kind of Viking-y. They're not real Viking skin. They are Crocs. I didn't want anyone to know, but thanks, Anthony. The hoax is up. I put all this work into looking like a Viking, and he had to point out the Crocs. They're free.
Man.
They're from Disney.
Yeah, I love free stuff.
They're actually pretty comfortable.
Even though I shat on them earlier.
Yeah, I've been shitting on them for about 15 years, but I get it.
No, I shat on Disney earlier.
They do it to themselves at the end of the day. But yeah, then balancing the practical effects with CGI was done so well. The finale was really strong. Everyone knows the story. Everyone knows the climax, and I think at the end of the day, it was just great. And I loved the ships too. The practical ships look great.
Yeah. Yeah, they built those and it looks awesome. I think it was overall a really good time. It's a solid adaptation. I think that there's space for this, especially for young generation. younger generations, especially for kids who didn't grow up with the films. They can grow up with these ones now. So I think it's valid to make this movie, and also to, you turn some profit for your company, you entertain people. And again, I'm seeing tons of overwhelming positive reactions from people as well. Like you said, all the ratings, fans of the films are loving it. It's just a small vocal minority are complaining. They never stop complaining.
You know what's interesting is
what
if a live action adaptation of Spider-Verse got made, everyone would be so happy and freak the fuck out.
I think so too.
Versus why is that okay, but we can't do a live action How to Train Your Dragon?
I think Spider-Man has a bulletproof vest for everything.
Yeah, Spider-Man.
I think everyone loves Spider-Man so much that there's nothing that could make people upset about Spider-Man.
True. That's a good point. All right. Thanks for listening to this excellent episode that I had a blast on, talking about How to Train Your Dragon and how it connects to Boys in the Hood.
The video analysis you didn't realize you needed.
As always, everyone, be sure to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. Share our content. Engage, comment, like, subscribe. Do all the things. And take care, everyone.
See you next time.